My name is Rachel. I am 34 years old. I am the mother of 3 daughters. Their names are Hannah, Lucy, and Emma. They are my whole world. Hannah, my eldest at 10, is thoughtful and serious, always looking out for her younger sisters. Lucy, who is 7, is full of bright energy and questions about everything. And little Emma, just turned 5, is the sunshine in our home, always ready with a hug and a slightly sticky hand. We lived in a small rented house on Maple Street. It wasn't large or fancy, not filled with expensive things. We didn't have much money, but what we had was love, and that filled every room. Our evenings were often spent together in the living room. I would read stories aloud, their heads leaning against me, listening closely. Sometimes we baked cookies, the warm, sweet smell filling the kitchen, little hands helping to stir the dough. We ate dinner together every night at the old wooden table, talking about school, about dreams, about silly things that made us laugh until our stomachs hurt. Just last week, we celebrated Emma's 5th birthday. I didn't have money for a store-bought cake, so Hannah, Lucy, and I spent the afternoon making one from scratch. It wasn't perfect, a little lopsided perhaps, but Emma's eyes shone brighter than any candle when we brought it out, singing, "Happy birthday." Seeing her face, surrounded by her sisters, their voices joined together, I felt a deep sense of peace. In that moment, in our little house, we had everything we truly needed. We were safe. We were together. That was enough. That was everything. That feeling of safety shattered completely one cold Tuesday night. I woke up suddenly. Not to a noise, but to a smell. Sharp, acrid smoke stinging my nose. For a confusing second, I thought I was dreaming. Then, a horrifying, crackling sound came from downstairs. Panic, cold and sharp, shot through me. Fire. My mind raced, but one thought drowned out all others. The girls. I threw off my blankets and ran, not even pausing for shoes or a robe. Smoke was already curling under their bedroom door. I pushed it open. Thick gray haze filled the air. "Hannah! Lucy! Emma, wake up! Now!" My voice sounded strange, tight with fear. Hannah coughed, sitting up instantly, her eyes wide with alarm in the dim light filtering from the hallway. Lucy started crying, confused and scared. Emma just whimpered, rubbing her eyes. There was no time for explanations, no time for comfort, only action. "Come on, we have to get out. Stay low." I remembered hearing that somewhere. Stay below. The smoke. I grabbed Emma, pulling her small body against mine. "Hannah, hold Lucy's hand. Follow me. Don't let go." Hannah, bless her brave heart, nodded silently, her face pale but determined. She grabbed Lucy's hand tightly. We moved quickly through the thickening smoke in the hallway, heading for the stairs. Heat radiated from below. Looking down, I saw an angry orange glow flickering at the base of the staircase. We couldn't go that way. My heart pounded against my ribs. Which way? The back door? Yes, through the kitchen. "This way. Quickly," I urged, turning towards the back of the house. Smoke followed us, thicker now, making it hard to breathe. Hard to see. I coughed, shielding Emma's face with my hand. We stumbled into the kitchen. The back door seemed miles away. Just as we reached it, I heard a loud crash from the living room, followed by the shattering sound of glass. The fire was spreading fast. My fingers fumbled with the lock on the back door. Locked. Of course it was locked. Why wouldn't it be? My hands were shaking uncontrollably. "Think, Rachel. Think. I forced my fingers to cooperate, turning the deadbolt. It clicked open. Relief washed over me, so strong it almost made my knees buckle. I pushed the door open and shoved the girls out into the cold night air before following, slamming the door shut behind us as if that could somehow contain the horror. We ran across the small patch of grass away from the house, only stopping when we reached the sidewalk across the street. We turned and watched. Flames were erupting from the downstairs windows now, licking up the sides of our home, painting the dark sky in terrible shades of orange and red. The crackling sound was louder out here, mixed with the sickening sound of things collapsing inside. Our home, our beds, our clothes, the girls' toys, Lucy's favorite doll with the yellow dress, Emma's birthday drawings taped to the fridge, Hannah's school books, our photo albums, filled with memories we could never replace. Everything. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder, but it felt too late. We huddled together on the cold pavement, dressed only in our thin pajamas. The girls were crying, clinging to me. I held them tight, my own tears blurring the awful sight. The smoke filled the air, carrying the smell of destruction, the smell of loss. In just a few short minutes, our whole world had gone up in flames. We had escaped with our lives, but we had lost everything else. Absolutely everything. The sirens arrived, red lights flashing against the smoke, but all I could feel was the cold ground beneath my bare feet and the terrifying emptiness ahead. Our light had gone out, swallowed by the darkness. The flashing red and blue lights painted the smoke-filled street as firefighters battled the flames that had been our home. Paramedics wrapped us in rough gray blankets, checking us for smoke inhalation. Questions came from police officers, kind but firm. What happened? Did you see anything? I answered numbly, my voice hoarse, my eyes still fixed on the ruin of our house. The girls huddled close, shivering despite the blankets, their small faces streaked with soot and tears. Then, a familiar face appeared through the chaos. It was Sarah, our neighbor from 2 doors down. Her face was etched with concern. "Rachel! Oh, dear heavens, are you and the girls all right?" She didn't wait for an answer, just rushed forward, pulling warmer, softer blankets from a bag she carried. She also had a thermos. "Here, hot chocolate, it's not much, but—" Her voice trailed off as she looked from us to the burning house. I managed a weak smile. "Thank you, Sarah. That's very kind." The warm mug felt good in my trembling hands, but the kindness, strangely, made the tears well up again. It was a small comfort against an enormous loss. Sarah stayed with us, offering quiet words, until an official from the emergency services told us they were taking us to a temporary shelter. A shelter. The word felt cold, foreign. The shelter was a large room, perhaps a school gymnasium or community hall, filled with rows of identical cots separated by temporary dividers. The air hummed with fluorescent lights that never seemed to dim, and the sounds of strangers, quiet crying, hushed conversations, restless shuffling, filled the space. It felt impersonal, sterile, a world away from the cozy clutter of our little house on Maple Street. We were given a small space with 4 cots lined up against a wall. The reality crashed down on me then. We had nothing. Literally nothing but the thin pajamas we wore and the borrowed blankets Sarah had given us. No toothbrushes, no clean clothes, no shoes, no photos, no books, no familiar objects. Every single possession was gone, turned to ash and smoke. A wave of nausea washed over me. How could this happen? Was there something I missed? A frayed wire I ignored? Did I leave something on in the kitchen? Guilt gnawed at me, sharp and unwelcome, even though I knew logically it was likely just a terrible accident. My daughters felt the loss in their own ways. Hannah, my brave little rock, tried to stay strong, but I saw the fear flickering in her eyes whenever a door slammed or someone spoke too loudly. She kept asking quiet, practical questions. Mom, what about school? My backpack burned up. Lucy just cried softly into her cot pillow, whispering over and over, My dolly, my yellow dress dolly is gone. And Emma, too young to grasp the permanence of it all, kept asking, Can we go home now, Mommy? I don't like this place. When are we going home? Each question felt like a tiny stab to my already aching heart. How could I comfort them when I felt so utterly broken myself? I tried. I held them close, wiped their tears, whispered reassurances I didn't feel. We'll figure it out, I said, stroking Emma's hair. We'll get you new things, I promised Lucy, knowing I had no idea how. School will understand, I told Hannah, pushing down my own panic about how I would even get them clothes to wear, let alone school supplies. The next day involved more officials, more forms. People from the fire department, a volunteer from a disaster relief agency. They were trying to help, I knew, but the process felt overwhelming. I had to recount the fire again and again. I had to list things we lost, an impossible task when your whole life has vanished. I learned quickly that our renter's insurance, the basic policy I could barely afford, would cover very little. Maybe enough for a deposit on a new place, eventually, but almost nothing for replacing our belongings. The process would be slow, they warned. Weeks, maybe months. We were given vouchers for a few basic necessities, some food, toiletries, a change of clothes from a donation center. Walking through racks of unfamiliar secondhand clothes, trying to find something that fit my growing girls, felt humiliating. We were adrift, depending on the charity of strangers. I felt invisible, like just another sad story, another problem for someone else to manage. The responsibility for my 3 daughters pressed down on me, heavier than anything I had ever known. The path forward wasn't just unclear, it felt completely obscured by thick, suffocating darkness. That night, lying awake on the hard cot, listening to my children's uneven breathing, I wondered how we would ever find our way out. The silence of the shelter wasn't peaceful. It was heavy with despair. Days blurred into a week at the shelter. The initial shock started to wear off, replaced by a heavy, grinding exhaustion and a persistent, cold knot of fear in my stomach. Each morning, waking up on the narrow cot felt like facing an impossible mountain. We had clothes now, donated and ill-fitting but clean. We had food, simple meals served on plastic trays, but we had no home, no privacy, no sense of normalcy. Little Emma developed a cough, a dry hacking sound that echoed in the large, impersonal room, especially at night. The shelter was drafty, and despite the extra blankets, the chill seemed to seep into our bones. Hearing her cough, seeing Lucy withdraw further into herself, watching Hannah try so hard to be grown up while her eyes held the worry of an adult, it all chipped away at my resolve. I felt like I was failing them, unable to provide the most basic comfort and security. One afternoon, I tried calling the insurance company again. After being on hold for what felt like an eternity, listening to repetitive, cheerful music that grated on my nerves, I finally spoke to someone. The news wasn't good. There were complications, paperwork issues, delays. The initial estimate they gave me for our lost belongings seemed laughably small, barely enough to furnish a single room, let alone replace everything for a family of 4. "We understand this is difficult," the voice on the phone said, polite but distant. "But these things take time." Time was something we didn't have. Renting a new place required a deposit and first month's rent, money I simply didn't possess. Hanging up the phone, I felt a crushing wave of despair wash over me. I walked back to our little corner of the shelter, trying to hold back tears. As I passed a group of people near the entrance, I overheard snippets of conversation. Another family. Fire. Always seems to happen to those types. Their words, careless and judgmental, struck me hard. Did they think we were somehow responsible? That we hadn't been careful enough? The sense of isolation deepened. We were just a statistic here, another burden. Later that night, after the girls had finally fallen asleep, Emma coughing fitfully, Lucy clutching a small, donated stuffed rabbit, I sat on the edge of my cot in the dim light. The weight on my chest felt unbearable. How could we possibly rebuild from this? We had nothing. I had no savings to speak of. My part-time job barely covered our old bills, and now even that felt uncertain. How could I find a new job, a new home, new everything, while trying to care for 3 traumatized children in a shelter? For a terrifying moment, the darkness felt absolute. The thought, fleeting but cold, whispered in my mind, maybe it would be easier to just stop trying. Just as that thought threatened to pull me under, a figure approached our cots quietly. It was Sarah. She carried a couple of large bags. "Rachel?" she whispered, her voice soft. "I didn't want to wake the girls." I looked up, surprised, to see her. "Sarah, what are you doing here?" Her expression was kind, determined. "I couldn't stop thinking about you all," she said, kneeling beside me. "I talked to some people. Folks at church, parents from the girls' school, even posted on the town community page online. People want to help, Rachel. They really do." She gestured to the bags. "This is just a start. More clothes, some toiletries, snacks the girls might like." She paused, taking a breath. "And something else." My heart gave a hopeful, hesitant thump. "What is it?" "Mr. Henderson, who owns the bookstore downtown? His mother recently moved into a nursing home, and her small apartment above the fee shop is sitting empty. He heard what happened, and he said you and the girls could stay there. Temporarily, of course, just until you get back on your feet. It's small, just 2 rooms and a little kitchen, but it's clean, warm, and private. No rent for the first couple of months." I stared at her, speechless. An apartment? A place with a door we could close? A kitchen? It seemed too good to be true after the hopelessness I'd felt moments before. Tears welled in my eyes again, but this time they weren't tears of despair. They were tears of overwhelming relief and gratitude. Sarah reached out and gently touched my arm. "It's okay to accept help, Rachel. People care. You're not alone in this." She opened one of the bags and pulled out a soft, fluffy teddy bear. "I thought maybe this could replace Lucy's dolly, just for now." At that moment, Lucy stirred, her eyes fluttering open. She saw the teddy bear, and the smallest, most genuine smile I had seen in days touched her lips. Seeing that tiny flicker of happiness in my daughter's face, seeing the genuine kindness in Sarah's eyes, something shifted inside me. The darkness hadn't vanished, but a light had definitely pierced through it. It wasn't just Sarah. It was Mr. Henderson, the people from church, the school parents, strangers from online, a whole community offering a hand. Hope, fragile but real, began to bloom in my chest. I took a deep breath, the first truly deep breath I'd taken in days. "Yes," I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. "Yes. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you so much. We'll take the help." It was a start. It was a flicker of light in the overwhelming dark, and I knew right then that we had to follow it. Moving into the small apartment above Mr. Henderson's bookstore felt like stepping out of a long, dark tunnel into the sunlight. Sarah helped us move the few bags of donated clothes and supplies we had gathered. Mr. Henderson, a quiet man with kind eyes, met us there with the key. The apartment was simple, one main room that served as a living area and kitchen, a small bedroom just big enough for 2 beds, and a tiny bathroom. It was sparsely furnished with older, mismatched items that other community members had quickly brought over: a sofa, a small table with chairs, 2 mattresses on the floor in the bedroom for the girls, and a pull-out sofa bed for me. But stepping inside, closing the door behind us, locking it, that simple click echoed louder than any noise in the shelter. It was the sound of privacy, of safety, of having a small space that was just ours. The girls explored tentatively at first, then with growing excitement. Emma discovered the window overlooked the street above the bookstore, fascinated by the people walking below. Lucy immediately claimed the teddy bear Sarah had given her as the apartment's official guardian. Hannah, practical as always, inspected the tiny kitchen. "Mom, it has a stove. We can make cookies again someday." The relief was immense, almost overwhelming. That first night, tucked into our borrowed beds, the quiet felt strange but wonderful after the constant background noise of the shelter. Emma's cough began to ease in the warmer, cleaner air. We started establishing routines. Thanks to more donations coordinated by Sarah and the school, backpacks, notebooks, pencils, the girls returned to school. It wasn't easy for them at first, facing questions and curiosity from classmates, but their teachers were understanding, and slowly, they began to readjust. My days became filled with practical tasks, sorting through donations, endless phone calls, about insurance, filling out applications for assistance, and starting the search for a new job, even a temporary one. It was daunting, rebuilding a life from scratch. There were still moments of deep sadness when one of the girls asked for something specific that was lost in the fire, or when I caught sight of the burnt-out shell of our old house on the news. The path ahead was still long and uncertain, but now we faced it from a place of safety, not despair. We faced it together, within 4 walls we could call our own, even if only for a while. Months passed. Autumn turned into winter. We were still living in the small apartment above the bookstore. Mr. Henderson kindly extended our stay while I saved up. The insurance money finally came through, not enough to replace everything, but enough, combined. With community support and careful saving from a part-time cleaning job I found, to give us a foundation. One evening, I sat at the small kitchen table watching the girls. Hannah was helping Lucy with her homework, patiently explaining something. Emma sat beside them, drawing colorful pictures on scrap paper. Bright flowers, a smiling sun, and a little house with 4 figures holding hands outside. Our apartment walls were decorated with these drawings now. bursts of color against the plain paint. We had just finished a simple dinner of pasta, the first meal I'd cooked in our own little kitchen that felt truly relaxed, truly normal. Looking at my daughters, safe, warm, learning, even laughing again, my heart filled with a quiet gratitude that ran deeper than words. The fire had taken so much. It had brought unimaginable pain and fear, moments where I thought the darkness would swallow us whole. It's true that part of our story could make you cry. We lost everything we owned, every physical piece of our past. But the fire didn't take us. It didn't take our love for each other. And in the deepest darkness, we found unexpected light. It shone from Sarah's unwavering kindness, from Mr. Henderson's quiet generosity, from the neighbors, teachers, and strangers who offered help without expecting anything in return. That light showed us that community matters, that human connection is stronger than brick and mortar. It showed us our own resilience, a strength I never knew we possessed. We learned that everything isn't about possessions. It's about love, safety, and the courage to keep going, even when it feels impossible. We were finding our way, slowly, step by step. It wasn't the life we had before, but it was our life, rebuilt with hope and held together by love. And in the quiet warmth of our little apartment, surrounded by my daughter's drawings and their gentle breathing, I knew we would be okay. We had found our light in the dark, and we would carry it forward,